The Blueberry Fields Cooperative Board meeting, membership meeting, has now begun. Today is September 12th, 6:36 p.m. I'd like to welcome everyone, residents. Do you want me to move this? Yeah. How about now? Can you not hear? How about now?
Better.
I said 6:36.
Better.
Now can you hear? Okay. All right. How about the folks in the back? Yes?
Better. Better, Chris.
So, I'll try this again. Welcome.
Yeah.
You like a comment. Residents, members, folks from CDI. Melissa was here a little bit ago, but I think she's gone. She's going to be our new caregiver. Poppy Arford's here, one of our guests. Poppy, Carol O'Donnell here. And it's nice to see you all. Some new faces, some regular faces that appreciate your support very much. So welcome. We normally would be at the high school, but there was no room at the inn, so here we are. And so we're sorry it's been a bit confusing on a number of fronts. The location, the time, packets that went out, that we're going to go over every bit of that tonight. So all of the questions that you have that have been causing all kinds of angst, please just breathe and we'll tend to all of that. It's been a very busy week. We're in the crunch week, and there's been lots of moving parts. So I just encourage you to trust us, that continue to trust us. We're going to make it work. We, all of us, are going to be the new owners of the Blueberry Fields Co-op. So we'll do this together. So just a couple of housekeeping things. Any one of these exits you can get out, the same exit over in the back. There's another exit here. Bathrooms are on the back wall here, if you need those. If you would, please silence your devices if you have one with you. And same etiquette, if you want to speak, please raise your hand and we will get a microphone to you. And thanks again for your patience. We're this close to the touchdown. So I'm going to call up Miranda Chums next. She is our board secretary.
Hi everyone, it's great to see you all tonight. I previously shared our membership meeting minutes from August 15th, August 22nd, and August 24th. That was the day we voted with the board via email. However, since those were membership meetings, that will not be just a board vote, but a membership vote. So I'll coordinate with Nora to get those minutes out, the draft minutes out to you all, so we can vote on them at our next membership meeting. In the meantime, I've incorporated any edits from the board, but we'll just save those for next time. And with that, we'll table that and I'll call up Zach, our treasurer, for the treasurer's report.
Hello, everyone. So for memberships, we have 213 as of today, which is pretty great. And over the last couple of days, Janet and I set up a bank account for the co-op, so that's what I want to do. And that's all I got for you guys. Yeah, that's all set up. And would anyone want to confirm those numbers?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
And with that, I'll turn it back to Dan.
We have someone special to introduce you to, but she ran out, and is she coming back tonight? So she will be back. So when she gets back, we'll introduce her to you. And she's going to be very important to all of us soon. So next up, we want to talk, we're going to start off with a bit of a description about what's been going on with the bylaws. Most of you should have copies, keeping in mind that when we delivered packets yesterday, they were delivered only to members. So folks that hadn't signed up to be members yet wouldn't have received the package. And my apologies, I understand there were a couple of folks that didn't get them anyway. So the woman that ran out to make some copies for us. So we'll get that sorted out for you. So on that note, I don't know if Nora wants to speak to the bylaws or if we want to just open up with questions. Somebody's waving at you, Bob. Come on over. Bob and Dolores. No, I know. They're telling you to come and sit. You have reserved seats right up front.
When you show up late, you get on.
Can everyone hear me if I talk like this? Okay. This is very. I'm just going to give some context on the bylaws. Unless people are shouting at me to go page by page, which you know I'm more than happy to do, I am not going to go page by page. I'm instead thinking, if it's okay with the board, that we open it up for questions or comments. If there's so many comments and changes, then I'm going to recommend that we go page by page. I know it's painful, but it's how we do it thorough, it's how we do it right. Before I do that though, I'm seeing my colleague Melissa's walking in, and I do want to just introduce her to you all because she's going to start working with your community after purchase. And so she came up tonight just to introduce herself to face to face, and she has to leave for another commitment around in the next few minutes. So I want to just make sure I can introduce her, and then we'll get into the bylaws. Does that sound okay? Melissa, you want to say anything about yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa. I live in Westbrook. I've been here in Maine working as a post-acquisition technical assistant for over 7 years now. I work with Brunswick Bay across the street. I am so inspired by all of you. I mean, this story is incredible, and I feel honored to work with every one of you. You can get my phone number, you can text, you can email if you have any questions. I know this can be nerve-wracking and confusing, so we're all here to help if you need us. And it's really nice to not meet everyone personally because we are a lot of people right now, but it's great to see all of you and to see all your faces.
So you're going to be seeing Melissa more after purchase. I work on the pre-purchase side. Obviously, I live in Rhode Island, so you want someone who's a little bit closer. And I would just say that Melissa was one of the people who trained me, so you're in really good hands. She's an expert, and she's going to do the technical assistance for your community. You know, regular training, supporting your board meetings, really making sure the handoff from the prior owner to your co-op and that the board stepping into that role is very well supported so it feels smooth. So just wanted to add that. And then we'll pivot back to the bylaws if that sounds okay. Does anyone need a copy of the bylaws? I'm seeing a hand. I'm seeing 4, 5, 6 hands, 7 hands. Oh, don't be shy. How many copies do we have before I? I think, is it the last thing in the packet? Pat, is it the last thing in the packet? So if you could keep your hands up, Well, there's not a lot, so I don't see that many hands. Okay, so they're going out if you want to just keep your hands up. So just to give some context on this document, if that sounds okay, this document is not your rules. I got a lot of good messages in the last couple days from people saying, where are we going to talk about mowing? Where are we going to talk about pets? Where are we going to talk about skirting? The standard to which everyone's individual lot is maintained. And all that stuff is important stuff that you are going to talk about. This is just not that document. So the bylaws, it's a requirement, right, to have a governing document for your cooperative. When you file with the state, you need to have a set of bylaws in effect. When you go to the lenders and say, we are a borrower, we are empowered to borrow these funds and to maintain and operate our community, they are going to ask you, what is the governing document for the Blueberry Fields Cooperative? Do people want me to pause for a sec while the bylaws get out? Is that kind of confusing? Okay, I'm going to pause for a sec while the bylaws go around. Yeah, it's a little, yeah. It's a little good call.
Is it good? Is it a microphone? Yeah.
Clapping for fans. Thank you. Good idea. Okay, just gonna give it another minute while these documents get out. Can you?
On this day, I agree on the list.
No. Okay. Okay, do people feel ready for me to get back to talking? Okay, I'm seeing a thumbs up. So, like I was saying, this is not the community rules, these are the bylaws. So what that means is this document is going to tell you who are the members of your cooperative, how are you going to take votes, how is the membership going to act, who can be on the board of directors, how does the board of directors meet, and how does the board of directors act, how would your cooperative dissolve if you were ever to choose to do that. So that's what the bylaws are for. This document is replacing, if anyone remembers, it feels like a million years ago at this point, it's replacing the acquisition bylaws that you passed at the very beginning of this process on June 6th, or around about. So that was a quick and snappy, like, let's get through the purchase exploration. Let's have a document that tells us how we're gonna vote, what level of approval we need to make some critical decisions. But it says that that document goes away when you purchase the community or when you stop trying to purchase the community. So that's why you need to replace that document. This document, you can approve it tonight, you can make changes to it in the context of this meeting, and then you approve it. And down the line, once you're functioning as a resident-owned community, 2 months, 6 months, 10 years, if there's something that's not working here, you can get people in the room and you can change it. So it's a living document. It's not like you pass it tonight and it's set in stone, chiseled in stone, you can never change it. This is basically a template that we have used with all the resident-owned communities that we've supported, that was then amended and developed with the board of directors. Let's not have that hit anyone in the head. That we then worked on and amended with the board of directors. The cooperative attorney then reviewed it and made comments to it, and then it went out to the membership. So that was the kind of steps that took us to this point. The membership is the body that has the authority to pass the bylaws, change the bylaws at any point. So is there any more context that the board would like me to provide, or do we want to get into the document? All right, we did. So maybe we'll go into open forum, like, is this?
I'm asking a simple question. You give an address. You get an address, your street address, Do we have to go to town hall to find all those lot numbers?
It says lot number. So you're talking about the membership agreement, the occupancy agreement. So we'll get to that separate, different, I'm talking about the bylaws. For the occupancy agreement, unless anyone is gonna cut me off and feel differently, I would just put your address.
Bylaw question.
Okay, does that, we'll come back to that when we tackle the occupancy agreement.
I actually have two questions. First of all, we just need to clarify that 45-day rule, is that before you can put it on the market, or is that before you can close on it, or is that before you can move it, the 45 days?
Yeah, so you're referring to, if anyone who wants to follow along, the bottom of page 4,
4.2.
4.2. It says, any member who plans to sell or move their home shall give written notice 45 days in advance. You can change that if the majority of this room wants to shorten it. It's really before you like leave the community. If you're giving notice of something, I intend to sell the property.
Well, can you put it on the market? I mean, you give notice you want to sell it, and then put it on the market, but you can't live for 45 days, is that how it works?
No, you can sell it sooner.
No, I'm confused, Bill. If 45 days notice of what?
I intend to sell my home.
Intent to sell.
Yeah.
So you can put it on the market and then give 45 days when you put it on the market. Is that correct?
I can't really hear you. I think you really have to talk into the
All right.
mic.
45 days, say, I want to put my home in the market tomorrow.
Yep.
And I can give you 45 days notice at the same time.
Yep.
Okay, I got it. It was not clear.
Yeah. And this is not, there's no penalty. If you tell the board, I intend to give notice, you don't need to pause. If you get a buyer the next day, there's no recourse in here. There's no, you can take that buyer, you
That's
know?
okay, of course you take a buyer, but you can't actually move for 45 days. Is that correct?
You can.
Well, then what's the point of the 45 days?
The goal is that the board and the property manager has a heads up that there's going to be a transfer of ownership, so that they're aware that we need to track that property. There's going to be a new buyer, there needs an application, and need all documents. And it's also going to be maintained that someone's paying rent on that unit. So the idea is to incentivize people to give enough lead time so that there's always someone paying rent on that unit. Again, there's no mechanism to, there's no stick, so to speak. So if you don't do this, there's nothing that happens. This is just kind of to set everyone. The goal is to give a lot of heads up so that everyone can kind of like prepare themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay. Two more questions. Let me go with the easy one first. This is on page 5. It is sale of member's home. C.
Mm-hmm.
The property shall purchase the member's interest from the said member household by paying them the amount equal to the member's total payment, which is only $1.
Yeah.
Okay, just because, without interest, so they just give you your dollar back.
Yeah.
Okay.
If this is confusing and people want to strike this, you can strike it.
All right, let's go back to A. And this is going to question more people have. That we have to take the low or moderate income family or individual over the better, more affluent family. We have to accept that offer.
So this is good. This comes up in every group.
Yes.
So because there's main housing in the mix, and because there's a lot of grant funding in the mix, there needs to be some mechanisms in place that kind of prioritize that this is affordable housing. So the way that they try to toe the line between acknowledging that you're a homeowner and you can sell your home to whomever for however much is they structure this. So you need to get 2 offers for the same price and the same terms and the same conditions down to the down payment, down to the closing timeline. All components would need to be absolutely identical, and only in that circumstance. When someone who has less means, so to speak, lower income, they would be given the priority. But you don't need to sell your house for less. So you set your home price at however much you so choose, and anyone who's buying it needs to pay that, essentially.
I suspected that this had to do with our loan terms. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we get too many affluent people, then next time we have to notified that we raised our interest rate. Did you hear that? I'm sorry.
No, so your interest rate is fixed. So there is no circumstance where your interest rate would change unless you go through, like a rate modification or you finance later on. But Maine Housing would not penalize you. They want to see over time that 20% of your community stays at or below 80% of the yearly median income. And when we did your income surveys, the anonymous income survey, almost 90% of your community already is at 80% or less. So you're starting with so much buffer or cushion that they kind of looked at that situation and they said, okay, we have no problem here. They want to see some mechanism to say, kind of put into your governing document that you are the goals of affordable housing. So that's where this language came from.
Okay. I suspected that, so I just wanted to clarify. Any other questions, folks?
I think Janet has something she wanted to add.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm just curious, if we decided to refi down the road, the chances of us doing business with Maine Housing again are probably slim. I don't know. Would they redo this with us?
I have no idea. I don't see why not. I don't see why they would not do it again. Do you have a reason that you have in mind? They're definitely doing it because you're a resident-owned, not-for-profit, affordable housing community. So if you pay off your loan, or if you pay it down so substantially that you want to refinance with a different bank, and you want to see if Maine Housing is still interested, but you want to dramatically change the nature of your business, you want to set a share price at $20,000, Maine Housing would look at that and say, no, we're not going to. But if you're structured this way, which is really trying to be as affordable and, representing the residents already here, then I don't see why they wouldn't be interested. Other questions from the crowd? So did you get your questions answered?
Hello. I'll deal with bylaws, but I also have questions on the occupancy. I'm a former English major and proofreader, so.
I think I can't hear you.
Okay, right. I am holding. Oh, is that better?
Yes.
I'm a former English major and proofreader, and Article 10.1 needs to be invented, but probably saw it before. 10.4 says records are going to be on Google Drive, and I was wondering why you wouldn't also include a paper record of that.
Get hold of that. It's to the side.
I'll try again. All right. So 10.4 says the records will be on Google Drive and we can access them, but that to me is not secure enough as much as a paper copy would be. So I hope you will also at some point have a paper copy stored somewhere and put it in the bylaws. And then on page 16, the last page of bylaws, cooperative is hyphenated, and I didn't understand why. In the rest of the document, it is not. And I'm assuming it's because this was some sort of template that got borrowed from somewhere else. But I would not have cooperative hyphenated.
So,
that's my English major 2 cents.
So I got 10.1 needs to be indented. 10.4, would you like to make a motion that you keep paper copies, and then we would need a different member to second that motion, and then you could take a hand-raised vote if that's a change you would like to make to the document. So that this is not just for me to, explain what's already written. If you want to make changes, you can do so in this meeting. So Tom, do you want to?
Yeah. Well, I just think because, there's been several computer glitches that have erased a lot of information. So I would just make a motion that we include a paper copy of things that are valuable to the cooperative in addition to Google Drive, which can be accessed by everyone.
I second. I second the motion.
And for the sake of Miranda, do you want to, if you're seconding the motion, do you want to say your name and your address? So the motion for Tom, I'm just going to repeat it, and everyone hear me at this volume, is that on Article 10.4, in addition to keeping the cooperative's records on Google Drive, you will keep a paper copy of everything, all the important documents. If you live in the same household, you can't second the motion. Yep, so one member household has made the motion. Okay, do you want to just, Sandy, do you want to say your name and address for Miranda?
Sandy Molinari, 13 Amos Way.
Miranda, let me know when you're all set. And Tom, what's your address?
7 Amos Way.
Yeah.
I'm
What's
really
the
not-
hands? You have questions?
I just wanted to raise some discussion. So is there further discussion about this? Because I have some items as well. I was just going to say, where are we going to put all these documents? We don't have an office.
Secretary can handle it.
You're volunteering Miranda's home. Go ahead, sir.
If there are paper copies kept, paper copies obviously should have a date as to when they're revised. And as far as legal documents, perhaps there should be something that if there's ever a conflict between the electronic copy and the paper copy is the official one.
That's good.
Oh, I just heard something. The property manager will be holding these documents for us.
Did everyone hear what Janet just said? Typically, property management companies will keep paper records for you. So Miranda doesn't need to clear a room in her house.
I also just want to mention CDI as your technical assistance provider. Keep a digital record of every single document, and we have from day one. So we have a digital file for backup.
And then the gentleman over here said, if you are going to keep paper records, it should have a date for when it was adopted. And if there's ever a discrepancy between the electronic and the paper copy should rule, essentially. Already's got a question?
I would actually suggest that the electronic copy is the ruling copy because it's more apt to be current and up to date.
I think we really need the paper copy. I think it's safer. I'm concerned if we have to go to court for something. We don't know the chain of custody so well with the electronic documents. I'd much prefer to see the paper and be the original for the presiding.
I agree with that also, and I think there are a lot of people here who don't want the Google Drive. I don't know what percentage of the community that is, but I think that they should be thought of in this also.
Did everyone hear that? So you're sharing that some people are just not going to go on Google Drive. Paper copies more accessible, so that kind of, includes those people. I'm coming to you in the back. At least I don't have a cord.
So my concern with paper documents is this does have a responsibility that the co-op is going to have to make in the fact that these documents may contain personally identifiable information and it needs to be properly secured and monitored. So if we are going to go with paper, we have to come up with a plan that is going to alert for that. As and no offense to your guys' houses, if it's sitting in a cabinet house, is it secure? Could somebody break into it and steal? I those documents with our personal information?
So we were just saying that the records will be kept in the office of our property manager. So not in one of the residents' home. Okay? No, yes, property manager will hold on to them.
A question, and this may or may not be the bylaws. Are we allowed to rent to more ourselves, more than 2 people? Has that decision been made, i.e. husband, wife, and a child? And we sell to those people now, or are we still limited to no more than 2 people?
I can answer that.
Did everyone hear his question? So, as I understand it, you, maybe everyone, or at least a lot of people, have been constrained to only 2 occupants per household. So, I understand that the reason for that is controlling the uses on septics, especially with the older communities, or, older systems. So, that's going to be contained in, if it sounds like I'm referencing a bunch of documents, it's because everything's out of place. So, that's going to be in the community rules and the membership screening policies that you're going to work on. I'm going to tell you just with my experience in training, that strikes me a little bit as a fair housing violation. So when we go through the training to adopt those policies, I think we're going to need to talk about what's actually legal. If the number of people in the home doesn't make it like over occupancy by flood, which is 2 people per bedroom, then it's permissible. But at the same time, we need to balance the fact that you're older citizens. So I think that's a future conversation, and I'll make sure I write it on the chart so we know that we need to come back to that question. Another question for you? Okay.
I have a question about section 4(1)A and B.
Do you mind if I grab the mic for 1 second? So you do have a motion on the floor, so maybe we can close out the motion, and then we can come to another point if that sounds okay. No, I need to stay more on top. So there was, for Tom, just to keep us on track, there was it sounds like a friendly amendment to say paper documents, as long as they're properly secured with the property management company, and if there's ever a discrepancy between the two, electronic and paper rules. Is that an accurate summation of, Tom, do you accept that amendment to your motion? Said yes. Does Miranda have that amendment? Do you want me to repeat it? Does anyone want me to repeat the amended motion? Okay, so I'm going to repeat it. The motion was for 10.4, where it currently says only Google Drive. You're going to amend it, if you vote, to say you will also keep a paper copy that will be properly secured with the property management company. And if there's a discrepancy between the electronic and the paper copy will rule. So now the president would call for a hand raise. Is there any other discussion on that motion? Okay, go for it. No.
All those in favor of this motion? Keep your hands up, please, so that we can count.
And it's 1 per household. So if you live in a household, only 1 hand raise. I think that we could, if it's unanimous, we probably could just, is that okay with everyone? We count no's?
Okay, let's try it that way. Raise your hand if you're voting no for this item.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now we've amended that. We're moving on to the next questions, and then I'm going to come back to you in red. Yep. We have a typographical. I promise we will get through this. Do you want, I'll go to her in the back, and then I'll come back here. Oh, it's right here. I sense we have multiple English majors in the room. What was that? That was not unanimous. There was no votes on that motion? Okay, so Linda's bringing up that we're going to count yeses and then we're going to count abstentions. Okay. She's saying that people could have abstained from voting. So we have to count abstentions if people are not voting. So Janet, can you call for the vote again? I'll come back to you.
Okay, so we've decided that there are no no's. There are, who's voting no?
Here, I'll come to you.
Property management companies will not maintain paper copies. They will make a copy of it, scan it into something, and have an electronic copy. Property management companies are paperless.
It depends on the property management company, and
I guess we would have to run that by our property management company then before do we need to come back to this?
Just the way that it's worded, you can keep a copy at one office place if you want, of just the main,
We're not going to
documents.
retain that space. No, I mean, we're selling that building at some point. We're hoping. That's our plan.
So I think, did everyone hear what Linda brought up? Concern that property management companies might not keep paper copies, they'll only go electronic. I think you should still do yeses and nos, and we'll count the yeses and we'll count the no votes for Miranda's notes and abstentions. So if you're voting yes on Article 10.4 being amended, can you please put your hand up? Do you have something that you want to add? You do have an attorney. He's a transaction attorney. He is helping you through the purchase, and you'll have to hire a different attorney for landlord-tenant after you purchase. Good question. So if you're voting yes on Tom's motion about paper copies, please raise your hand, and we will count them. This is the beauty of slow democracy. And thank you for calling us. We will count yeses and nos. Yeah, the board can vote your members. Pat is still going. Thank you for the upper body exercise everyone's getting. Yeah, I know.
Should have started eating in the morning. I'm gonna be here all for tonight.
Pat's in the back row. Okay, are you good? You can put your hands down. Sandy, you can I know you're excited to keep your hands up, but you can put it down. Okay, so now, you want to call her? Okay. Just yes right now.
Don't forget Chris.
And Chris.
Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Are there any no votes?
I see 2, 3.
Are there any abstentions from voting?
If you are if you are abstaining from voting, please raise your hand in a very clear.
I think there's just one.
There's just one. Yep. Okay, so that motion. Yeah, it carried. So 10.4 is amended. Okay. are we ready to go to the next things? So you had a type thing.
I don't know if somebody wants to read this. It's on removal, Article 6.5, and on E, it has, if the member petition for removal of a director does not state that the vote to remove is requested for the next regularly scheduled meeting, or if the board of director, it should be directors, lacks time to give, otherwise the director is in complete control of everything, right?
That's the question? Okay, so we can change that. I'll put it up on the flip. So it's on 6.5E, Board of Director, in the first sentence, needs an S. Thank you for that. Pat, do you want to? Oh, okay. So 6.5E, Board of Directors with an S. We got it. Don't need to vote on a typo thing. So, okay.
So we're coming back to in red.
In red?
Board, question or comment, please? Thank you.
I have a question about rental. I lost my place here, hold on. It says in order to unify the members and make the cooperative stronger, all homes within the community must be owner occupied. I own a house, my son is living here, we're sharing expenses, but I'm devoting them. It sounds like that is not legal now. I was not made aware of that earlier.
Let me clarify. So you used to live together in the home?
Yes. Your question again?
So you and your son live together in the home?
No.
No.
My son lives in the home that
Okay.
I purchased. He's been there for about a year and a half. And now I find that that's not legal.
So you would want to change it. You want to change it. So
I'm assuming I'm not the only person in the whole park.
So can you direct us to what page and article?
That was page 4.1, use of homes, letter A.
So she's raising a good point. It says 4.1A. I'm gonna wait till I see pages stop flipping. So it says in order to unify the cooperative, all homes are going to be owner occupied. Am I correct in thinking, since I've seen this document a lot, that so everyone, generally family, interfamily is handled separately. It's not treated as a straight up sublet because you're family. So some groups will insert language to say that family, like interfamily arrangements shall be exempted from that provision. And then they'll refer to the definition of family that kind of rules in whatever given state they're in. They'll pull it right from the state statutes. So if most groups want to do it that way, because what you're describing is a very common situation, I'm seeing, do you have something about what she's raising?
I think that they need a background check. And I don't mean to question your family, but for you, to make sure that, you know what I mean, it could be questionable.
Did everyone hear the point raised that a background check could be important if it's an incoming person? So anyone who is moving into the community is subject to a background check. That's like a flat, that's how every group does it. So a family situation wouldn't be different. Anyone currently living in the community, so you're describing the current arrangement, you already live here. You are not all of a sudden subject to a background check or your son. So that's a good point, just a clarification. Just because it's an inter-family arrangement doesn't mean that they are held to like a different process. Does that make sense to everyone? No? So they're asking a question.
The way you explained it is, if someone lives there with their son, that's fine. But the other way is she doesn't live there, her son lives there. So either we have to change it to say that, or have a background check.
So I think we're describing the same thing, right? So some groups, another alternative, if you want to do this, some communities will say every situation, all households currently in effect at the time that the cooperative purchases are grandfathered in. You could also do it that way. And other comments?
What about people who live apart in 2-3 months,
Yeah.
like snowbirds?
What about?
Well, you say you have to be occupied.
So do you mind if I repeat the question? Can you hear me if I speak at this volume? He's saying, what about snowbirds? This provision does not say you need to be in your house every day. So it's just saying that you can't sublet the home. So if you're owner occupant, you live in Lynn Haven 6 months of the year, you live in Florida 6 months of the year, sounds like a great arrangement, there's no problem with that. If you're still an owner occupied home, there's not a threshold of occupancy you need to meet in order to be considered that. I'm seeing Pat's got a hand in the back.
So, there was like restrictions on how many people could visit per year. Is there anything on staff? Get friends over, things like that.
So the comment is, under the prior owner, there was a limit to how many people could visit in a given year.
Number of visits.
Number of visits. So again, any question about guests, that's going to be in the rules. So we'll get to that. That, what you're describing, again, strikes me as not particularly legal, but we'll get to that, and we will make sure that any housing-related document that you intend to adopt is vetted by a housing attorney. So I'm seeing a comment in the back, and then I'll come right to you.
I agree with grandfathering people that have their home to their children in a town. However, anybody in the future should be honest and say, my daughter's living with me now, so that they get the background check, because, we don't know what's going on with that daughter.
So I would propose, I'm going to come to you right here. The way we move through this conversation is people need to make motions. So if you like an idea, make a motion to insert that language, and then we can vote on it, you can vote on it, and we can keep this conversation flowing. I just saw your hands.
I think we're getting confused about what this pertains to. I think what we're trying to protect is that someone buys a mobile home or rental property where they would have, someone might come in and rent it for 6 months, another person might come in, that someone has bought a home to rent to gain money for themselves. Does that make any sense?
So I could, if people are amenable, suggest some language for your consideration if someone wants to make a motion. Does that sound okay? You could add language to 4.1a to say that any tenancy currently in effect at the time that the cooperative purchases the community shall be grandfathered in, which addresses your point. Moving forward, any inter-family rentals shall be addressed on a case-by-case basis with a background check. Maybe we'll phrase that to say, with all membership screening standards met, which includes a credit check as well, if someone's going to be paying rent. So I just am spitballing language, I'm not a voter, so I need someone to make a motion one way or the other.
It's not a bad thing. We all have to be checked out when we buy a mobile home. Right? Anything you buy.
Make the motion.
Yeah.
Make the motion.
Is that a background check? A back?
I'm not a,
I can't. Oh, jeez.
yeah, so you could say so moved to what I said.
So moved to what Nora says.
You want to say your name?
My name is Shelley, Shelley Reynolds, Reynolds. I live at 6 Bettina Lane.
Who wants to second? Okay. You want to say your name and address?
I'm not getting out of here.
Okay. I'm going to repeat the motion. It's an insertion at 4.1 to say that any tenancy currently in effect at the time that the cooperative purchases the community shall be grandfathered in. After purchase, any interfamily rentals shall be handled on a case-by-case basis by the board of directors with all membership screening criteria met. It's been made and seconded, so I'm going to ask Janet to call for yeses, nos, and abstentions. Please have patience with this process tonight. You don't need to do this often. We need people's patience and humor to get through this. Go for it, Janet.
Why don't we start with the no's? Any votes for no on this? Raise your hand way up and hold it up, please. Oh, I can't.
The motion is, okay, Maureen.
The motion is to amend Article 4.1, use of homes A. There's an insertion with this following language. Any tenancy currently in effect at the time that the cooperative purchases the community shall be grandfathered in. After purchase, any interfamily rentals shall be handled on a case-by-case basis with the board of directors with all membership screening criteria met.
Thank you, Miranda. I couldn't have repeated that from my memory. So, a no vote for that?
No.
Any other no's? Just the one no. And any abstentions? Anyone not wanting to vote? And yes votes, please.
Put your hand down. There must be a better. I'll let you Yeah. Left out. That's all right. I'm sure I'll do plenty of votes. There'll be more meetings. More meetings. If we need more meetings, more meetings. I think that's it is a process. It's good. Yeah, if you wanted to buy the space across the street, right? Like, we're gonna buy it, you guys can live in it. Yeah. That would be a violation of
Majority rules on that, so we will add that language or amend that language to 4.1A.
I would like to make a motion that any vote that is a clear and obvious majority in one direction or the other can be handled by a eyeball vote or a voice vote and does not need to be specifically counted if it's an overwhelmingly clear majority.
I think Robert If there's, okay, we're not gonna read Robert's rules right now in the meeting, so let's err on the side of caution and keep the hands counting. I know it's painful.
I want to know if we're gonna have to pay for water and sewage.
I know that's a question we need to talk about, so we need to finish the bylaws so we can get to the occupancy agreements. So let's keep it moving. So we've got, if anyone has more changes, this is the time to say it before you vote on the bylaws.
Since we already handed in vote on the bylaws with that little checklist, we'll just change that. Does that throw those pictures out?
Which one?
I think since these are substantive votes, amendments, we're not going to be able to count those absentee because this is a different document than what they voted on. Those were absentee votes on the document that you've now changed. And some of those people are here. So I think we should do voting of the people in the room. And if you voted absentee, then come and get a ballot when we get to the voting part. Did everyone understand the question that Linda raised? So people voted absentee with those ballots. They voted on a document that you have since amended. So by parliamentary procedure, those absentee votes cannot be counted because the document has since changed. So we're going to have to do voting of people in the room. Does that make sense to everyone? Yes. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. We need to get to the occupancy agreement, so I'm going to ask that we keep it moving. This is a document that is a living document. If you think of changes later on, you can come back and amend this document. You have to adopt something to purchase. If people are ready, you can certainly call for a vote. If someone else has another amendment they would like to make, this is the time. Other amendments or questions on the bylaws? The question was, will you receive a copy of the new bylaws once they're completed? Yes. When you have a final approved set of bylaws, every member needs to get that document. Got another question right here.
Okay, for the annual meeting, it's page 7, Article B. It says the board shall recommend for the approval by the members of the annual budget with proposed future ranks. If members after a meeting held or ballot conducted for said purpose shall fail to approve a budget that meets all contractual obligations, the board may approve such a budget without further vote of the members. I think that's pretty, you're not really giving the members a vote if you can.
So this item she's referencing is 5.2D. So it's saying that, and this is a good one, this is a good point to raise, they're all good. This one always comes up, which is, it says on 5.2D that if the board presents a budget and says, here's the budget for our new fiscal year, this is what the rent will be, and the members vote it down and say, no, we're not passing that budget, but that budget exists to meet your contractual obligations, the board has the power to approve it. What does that actually mean? If the rent needs to go up $3, $5, $10 because your bills as a cooperative have gone up and it's a contractual obligation, paying your bills, paying your mortgage, you need to have a mechanism in place. If you have like a container, I don't know what the word is, but like a membership that just is refusing any increase, but we're talking about inflation. It's a contractual obligation, it's a circumstance you can't get around. You need to have some mechanism built in that you have an ability to pass the budget to pay your bills. Does that make sense? It's not like the board saying, hey, here's the budget, we're building a swimming pool. That's not a contractual obligation. But if they say, hey, here's the budget, water is skyrocketing. It's skyrocketing. We have to raise the rent $5 in order for us all to meet the cooperative's obligations. Does that make sense? I will really strongly caution you from changing that because I have seen memberships where they vote anything down. And then your hands are tied and you can't pay your bills. But that's the only circumstance where the board would have that discretion. Anything else, it always is a membership decision. Does that make sense? Or if people have other questions? Or do you have more you would like to say on this? No? Okay. Other questions? I see a hand in the back. Good to get to walk.
This is on 4.1. B, alleging hardship is the condition that allows supplementary. I'm not concerned, but I'm wondering how much of our parks is going to become sublet, and who becomes the member, a voting member of these situations? What is a hardship? I don't think that's over.
Do you mind if I speak to this? So this is a good one. This is a hardship rental. So the process of that, I think he's directed us to which article it is. So we're on 4.1B. This is something that we talk about with all of our co-ops that we support. The mechanism is that someone would need to go to the board and I think this is kind of hardships that we see are deployment. You need to travel to see medical treatment. You need to go take care of a family member or someone out of state. You need to go into like a short-term or a long-term care, and you know you're going to return to the community, and you don't want people to be forced to suffer. No. Okay, is this still working? Okay, so you don't want people to be forced to sell their homes for something like one of those circumstances. So this gives you some flexibility to the owner occupancy requirement. And you'll see they have to come before the board, they have to communicate what the hardship is. The board has to accept that arrangement. It can only last 1 year. This is done, I think.
Just stop turning your body that way.
Oh, stop turning my body this way.
Yeah, stop doing that.
Oh, stop doing that. Okay, do this. Okay. It can only last for 1 year. So it's not like, I understand the concern, but also everything is a sublet. The idea is that you don't force people to sell their homes for one of those circumstances. Does that make sense to people? I'm seeing any hands.
Can we add to that clause similar to what we did? Can we add to that clause similar to what we did on the other one, that this would also be pending that the person coming in qualifies?
So what I'm going to say is that we're going to get to some policies. You're going to love the policies. The policies are going to say that any additional household member or anyone coming in at any point is subject to a credit criminal background check. So the idea is that the policies can be adopted by the board. The board has the power to do that, so you don't need to do this cumbersome all community meeting to change, but that will be added in the policies. Yep. So any other comments on this document? We have to move on. I'm going to be honest.
Quick comment here, Nora, or question?
Are we supposed to write the date where this is approved?
That's a great question. You don't need to sign the bylaws. Miranda, as secretary, if you adopt this document, will sign one official, corrected, amended set of bylaws. We'll write at the bottom, I don't know why, sorry, I have to turn to the right. And we'll take it, and then they will be distributed to the community. So you have the accurate, up-to-date document. So good question, but you don't need to sign anything, as a member. Does that make sense to everyone? More comments, or do people feel ready to either go for a vote or table this document? We need a motion from someone to keep this. Okay, let's get you.
My name is Carolyn Alexander, 17 Ella Lane. I move to vote. My name is Carolyn Alexander, 17 Ella Lane. I move that we vote on the bylaws as amended.
Oh, let's get your name and address.
Robert Teeman, 20 Lynch, second. Robert Teeman, T-I-E-M-A-N, 20 Lynch.
Okay. So you're actually going to do this by a written ballot. You're not doing this by a hand raise. So I'm going to recommend that we do balloting. Do we want to do it now, or do we want to get to the membership agreements? Tom, okay. Tom's got a question?
No question you asked, is there anyone discussion on the vote before voting?
Yeah, Janet, would you like to?
So if there's no further discussion, is there not?
Are
There
we
is.
voting on the whole package, or are we voting page by page?
We're voting on the whole package as amended. The amendments that we just
have to go
discussed.
page by page so that we know which pages are amended.
No, we'll make the changes per what we discussed. Miranda, our secretary, has kept track of all of those changes for us, and those changes will be made as we discussed and voted on.
And then paper copies will go out of the corrected document. Does that sound, so they will replace the draft that you received. You can just chuck it. So I would recommend we can either do the written ballot now, or we can discuss the occupancy agreement and do the written ballot for the bylaws at the end of the meeting. What's that? Okay, let's do the voting on the bylaws now, and then we'll come and do the membership occupancy agreement conversation after. Does that sound okay? We'll get them a new form. We're not, if everyone in the room gets a ballot, if you voted in advance, we're gonna throw those out because the document's been amended, so we can't count them.
Do you have one of
Got
those
a question? If you have a ballot, if you have a ballot,
you need one. One per household. If anybody has any extras, let us know.
I printed 150 copies, so we have more than enough. Yes.
It doesn't have to be secret.
Yes. If you came with a ballot tonight and you want to write as amended on your document, you can use the document you came with.
You have one? I have one. Who needs a ballot?
Yep, so Pat is passing out ballots, so the ballots are coming your way.
I'm happy to just be here. I got you. You have one? Yes.
You need 50. Yeah, I got a couple of those.
Make sure you. As you can imagine, not things. What I gather was the big. And sometimes, you gotta have some give and take and some loss. But yeah, he said that every time they get together, someone puts a motion to remove the unanimous vote. And every time, one person's like, no. And then nothing.
So you can bring them on up when you're, and then we'll get to the leases.
Plus, who knows what Gary picked them up. Didn't come from nowhere.
You can date it, not date it. Let's all put them in that direction, towards path.
Anything to get to move for a minute.
Everybody was restless, so now everyone wants me.
Thank you for your patience. You are very close to the finish line.
No, that's all in,
Then we have to go back to the drawing board. The thing we're not doing that's going to be a process. Because people are going to have a lot of opinions on that, for sure. Which we want.
Did you get one, Chris? Yes. Anyone else has a ballot? Raise your hand. Are we all good?
Okay, anyone sitting on a ballot still? Anyone still got a ballot? Oh. Yes, so most likely, we're gonna have to reach out to the absentee people and collect their votes as well, because realistically, you don't have enough people in the room. Yeah, so. It's a majority, 51%. You can count, but it's 213 member household, so we need 107. Yeah. So we're gonna count, and then we'll announce what the next steps will be. So do people feel ready to go to the lease conversation? Okay, on page 2, it says water and sewer. I'm gonna start there. You can strike that language if you want. The reason that language is in there, okay, I'm gonna give people a second. I know I'm making a hard pivot. Does everyone wanna just take a second, pull out their documents? I'm gonna read Tom's over his shoulder. So this, I already know, has been brought up by one individual over here. People emailed me this question. I knew it was gonna come up. I think we should address it first probably, and then for the other comments, we can get to there. Does that sound okay? You don't need to sign your lease tonight. There's already a number of leases that have come in. So this is a perpetual lease. So that means that you don't have a month-to-month, you don't have a 5-year, you don't have a 10-year. You have a right to your lot forever, as long as you pay the rent and follow the rules. So these documents, if you sign them, they cannot be changed later on unless you as a household willingly accept an amendment to your lease. So other cooperatives, when they pass this document, they want to build in some flexibility for the scenario 30 years in the future, because this document can't be changed. So that's why that language says, the member further agrees to timely pay all monthly water and sewer and property and other taxes. It does not say that those are handled separately. You are paying those when you pay your rent. The idea is that if down the line, 10 years, you connect to sewer, and then your cooperative wants to sub-meter, and you democratically, majority rules as a membership, say it makes more sense for our business to sub-meter sewer or water. That's the language that gives you the authority and the flexibility to do that. But right now, that is not the case. But this is true. You are paying your water and sewer when you pay your 1 monthly rent amount, which will go in Article 3. So that's clarification. It might not assuage everyone. When we talked to the cooperative's lawyer about this, he suggested a couple different scenarios. You can write in, at the time of signing this document, my water sewer is handled in my lot rent, noted above, and initial it. He said that would give you protection as a household. If people don't want to do it that way, we can print out this page again and redistribute it to everyone with that sentence struck out. So you are the property owner. So you ultimately have the decision about how you want to do this. Does that clarification make sense for people? Tom, let me get you a mic.
Article 7 contradicts.
Article 7 contradicts it. Let me turn this way. Can I take your lease? So you're saying that Article 7 is saying that, actually,
Article 7, cooperatives covenants. I'm sorry. Article 7, cooperatives covenants says that the community will pay the taxes, property taxes, and there was something about sewer.
All would do it. Okay. I'm just gonna say it if that sounds okay. So the cooperative is stepping in the position of being the property owner. So as the property owner, you have an obligation to maintain and provide utility hookups for each home that's in the park. So Article 7, as Tom is pointing out, is saying that the cooperative is responsible for providing water and sewer service to each lot. So it's not a contradiction, it's just saying that the cooperative is providing those services, the homeowner is paying those services through their rent. Does that make sense to everyone? So they're both right. The same way right now, Kurt is providing those services to each home, and you are paying for those services when you pay your rent. It's actually not different than your current arrangement.
Should it say septic instead of sewer, because you don't have sewer?
I would use sewer because sewer can be a catch-all for anything that is taking the sewage out of your home. If you later on do connect to sewer, you don't want to have to amend this document because, like I said, it's perpetual. Does that make sense to everyone? It's still sewage even if it's going in septic tanks. We don't need to get into detail on that, right? Celeste?
I think, just to follow up on what you were saying, it would be a better option for us to initial that we don't pay sewer now, rather than amend the whole document and have people sign, because in 2 years, if we do hook up with the sewer, you're going to want those people to be paying their sewer bill. Am I correct on that? If we did individual meters. So you don't want to opt people out if then each individual sewer would go to that person's home.
So Celeste is saying it might make more sense to initial next to that article and say currently we're not paying those things. Again, the only way that you would pay those things is if you get in this room and you decide that's how you want to do it. There is no outside entity that is going to force you to do that. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of people's concern is like, what is this? We already voted on the rent. What's this extra charge? That makes complete sense. That I really understand that. This is just giving you the leniency to say that if economically it makes sense to do this some different way in 10 years, you need to have the power to do that for your business. So Celeste is saying, does it make more sense to initial it rather than the extremely confusing process that will be printing page 2 and 3, distributing it to the community, getting people to insert it into their document, and then selecting it. Does that cover what you're saying? Other questions or comments on this or any other item? Thank you to whomever opened all the doors. I'm seeing a hand. I'm going to come to Beck, and then I'll come right up to you. Thank you for your patience.
Yes, on page 3, the first line, the debtor shall be responsible for all days and means to repair of the lot. Does not specify your driveway. Are you responsible for repairing our own driveway?
How is it handled now? So the question was on the top of page 3, it said that the homeowner is responsible for maintenance of the lot. She's asking, what about the driveway? What about hot top your driveway? So the point is no. I believe if you look at Article 7, it's going to... Okay, no, it's not Article 7. Okay, you can change it if you want. You can write it next to it and say, most co-ops handle their driveways as a business rather than a homeowner, unless the homeowner is excited to do that.
I just want to add to this that I believe in the rules, it said if there was evidence that you had somehow damaged the driveway, you know, like an oil leak in your car or that sort of thing, then you would be responsible for paying for that repair. But again, that would come under the rules and not necessarily under here. That, yes, the hot top.
Hot top isn't the same as like a re-asphalting, like it's treated the same way.
I've got a big question. Kids Pony
had our rents based on the size of the lot and the number of people in the mobile home. Can it be based on the size of the lot instead of how many people? Because people pass away, people get married, people separate, or is that not a good question?
Did everyone hear the question? So this came up, I believe, on August 22nd and 24th when we were looking at the rent to purchase packet. The rents that were calculated, the $100 increase, is to meet your mortgages. You have to take in a certain amount of income. I believe that the decision that was made at those meetings was to structure it this way for the sake of purchase, and if a year or 2 years down the line, you want to completely overhaul your rent structure, as long as you're taking in the same income, you can completely overhaul it. I think given that you are days away from the closing table, I'm going to be honest, we cannot go back to the lenders with a new rent scheme. But once you're resident owned, you just need to cover your bills. So if you want to structure it, the whole time through, the board has had a lot of conversations about the uniqueness of your rent structure. And I would just recommend that we kind of hit things point by point, and we can get to that down the line if that sounds okay. Does that sound okay to everyone? Did everyone hear the question? It's come up. I think the board had tens of hours of conversation on this. I almost said 100, I don't know. And kind of said, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We're on a commercial real estate timeline. Let's get this structured in the most cost-effective way for the residents now. And a year into owning it, if we need to fix it, we have the you, not we. You have the power to fix it.
Well, I think the basic question is there's a lot of confusion about how much everyone's going to be paying. And is it based upon what you're paying now? And is that what you're paying now taking into account the $20 that most of us don't pay because we pay it on time early? Okay, that's what the confusion was.
Yeah. So we have decided, I believe that we've discussed this before, so whatever your basic rent should be, it doesn't matter if you take a discount. If my rent is $530, I've been paying $510 right along. So I am going to pay $630 for my rent. And that just means it's $100 on top of the base rent. We've also had a question about, well, gee, you know, I'm not in my home in the wintertime. I go south. Can I have the lower rate? And the answer again is no. We have to go with that original base rent, like Nora said, that we calculated our budget on. So I hope that helps answer your question.
I'm going to come all the way back to you. No, you can't shout loud enough for me to hear you. The question is it starting October 1st? And maybe I'll hit the next thing on the agenda. The closing is it's going to be delayed a couple days, most likely, because of some survey stuff that the board and the seller are working out. So most likely it will be October 1st, and we're just going to keep people updated about when the actual park purchase is. And you will be getting a letter from the property manager saying this is how you pay your rent as soon as the purchase is simultaneous to the purchase. So you'll be getting more information on that. Does that answer the question? So originally you were set to close on Monday. So it's most likely it's going to be pushed. We're not talking orders of magnitude, but we just need to keep people in the loop about where you're paying your rent and when the closing happens. Other questions on the member occupancy agreement? Go for it, Sandy. Let me get you a mic. Do we know how many days it's going to be pushed? No, we do not. We do not know. It's in the seller's hands. So the amount of time it's pushed, it depends on how quickly the seller is going to move on. Some survey matters. You got doctor's appointment? I'm sorry. Go for it, Tom.
I just have a question about the contact information. Is the email address ours or the contact person? It's on page 5.
It's you as the member.
Us as the member, not the contact person.
Who's the contact?
It says emergency contact.
Oh, the emergency contact person. Yeah.
Is it there?
It's there.
So, Tom, the contact, Article 21, that's you, the homeowner name and your phone number. But down under emergency contact, it has both email and a phone number. And if you want, you can add your email address to up above on the contact.
Yeah, I noticed there wasn't a space.
And we have most of them anyway, for folks that are members, and even some that aren't, we have email addresses.
Okay. And my last question is, what if a person does not sign this agreement? What will you do? What will the board do?
I asked that question too. I lived in a condo association before I moved here, and my lease expired, so that just made me, by law, I became a tenancy at will or month to month. So that if the person doesn't sign, they still live in Lynn Haven and Liberty Fields Cooperative, and they still have to pay their rent. And if they choose not to pay their rent or not to pay the right amount, then the property manager will be dealing with that.
And a good point to Tom's question about what happens if someone doesn't sign. You do not need to sign this document tonight. If you want to take more time to think it over, just show it to maybe an attorney or a family member. So the goal is to get this distributed. There's an article, I believe it's Article 16, that talks about attorney fees. If you are going to move to evict a household, you need a written agreement with that household that allows you as the landlord to recoup attorney fees through the eviction process. So it is in the interest of the cooperative to have a written documentation with a household to say that they can recoup attorney fees if, God forbid that happens. It's in the best interest of your whole business, really, because you can spend a lot of money on an eviction. It's also signing this document in the benefit of the household, of the homeowner, because as we started this conversation, it's a perpetual right to your lot. It's not a month to month, so it does give you more protection in that it's for a perpetual rent, lot.
So Nora, what happens if someone refuses?
If they refuse, that's their right. They would become a non-member. To be a member, you have to sign a member occupancy agreement, and then they would be a month-to-month resident, or they'd be given a shorter-term lease, basically.
People that are non-members, are they going to get the leases the same as we know for
Yes.
The question is, do non-members get leases? Yes. Another thing you'll notice in the membership lease is that it says you, a member, are committing to follow the bylaws, the document we just talked about. The bylaws is the governing document of the cooperative. So if someone's not a member, they don't need to follow the bylaws because they're not a member. So the main difference with the non-member lease is that it doesn't mention the bylaws anywhere. And also it's not a perpetual term. It's a shorter term. We use the term resident homeowner instead of the term member. Otherwise, it's a very similar looking document. The reason they didn't go out yet is logistics. It was easier to do one distribution drive and then the second.
If we sign this tonight, do we get a paper copy of the things that we signed?
Not today. So this is a good point. Everyone needs a copy of their lease for your records. So what's going to happen is when you feel ready to sign this document, you will return it either to a member of the board, though Tom isn't looking that excited,
Or to the property, this finally died?
or to the property manager who will be coming on board at the time of purchase. Most likely, we're going to get the property manager to scan all the leases and make copies so the cooperative can retain a copy, and then the originals will be redistributed to all households. So you will get a copy of your lease. I would imagine it will happen, this one's really loud and good, I imagine it will happen shortly after the closing, as quickly as the property manager can move. Any other, I'll come to Linda and then I'll come up here.
And I'm just curious, the attorney has established that it's legal to enter a contract for property you do not own yet in Maine.
We shared this document with the attorney. He said he said you could distribute these. So that was what he was sharing. Yeah. I'm seeing a hand over here.
In the article, on 3, the lot rent there, is it written in stone that your rent has to be paid on the first, and then if it's not, that 4% goes right into effect?
So the board decided to recommend that you have a 15-day grace period, which is mirroring the law, I think Linda shared. And after that, there would be a late fee to incentivize the fact that your co-op does need to take in lot rent. So you have essentially 16 days to get your rent in. And then after that fact, you would get a late fee. If you get your check later in the month, many people have asked this, then you should approach the property manager and work out a written agreement to say, hey, I get my Social Security check on the 20th. I'm clearly not going to make the 15th for the grace period. I have a written agreement with you. Do not charge me a late fee. So that's how we're recommending that it's structured, if that sounds okay. So this is a lease that is in effect for all residents. So if that's your situation, you can hold off on signing this lease, approach the property manager, work out a written agreement that will be attached as an amendment to the lease to say, I received my Social Security check on this date, and you'll sign both at the same time. So it says the lot fee must be paid by the first, and there is a late payment fee for lot rent received after the 15-day grace period. So it's due on the first, and there's a 15-day grace period. Yeah. So this actually mirrors the state statute. That's where this language came from. There's a 15, so if it's due on the first, there's a 15-day grace period after the due date. And at that point, there is a late fee. Does that make sense? It is that. The 4% would be charged after the 15-day grace period. So it says that the lot rent must be paid by the first, so that would be the due date. And there is a lot late fee payment, and then, whatever dash, for lot rent that is received after the 15-day grace period. So it's the same sentence. It's saying that there's a late payment if it's not due, if it's not returned, 15 days after the due date. I understand it could be worded a little bit differently. It's an attorney that wrote it. If I wrote it, it would be more eloquent, but it does mirror what the state law is. So we didn't pull that out of someone's, go for it, Celeste.
I just want to say, I'm sitting here and I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the concept that we are not only going to be residents, but we are going to be the owners of the park. We're wearing two hats. And I find in all these documents, I read them and I have to think down the road, people are going to move out, people are going to move in. So some of these rules we look at and go, well, that's not me. I'm not going to do this. And it's confusing to me. But we have to think down the road when new people are coming in. Yes, we want a background check. We want a credit check on people. But on the other hand, if I'm having a hard time this month and I'm not able to make my payment, I want to know I can go to the board or go to the property manager and have some flexibility with it. So these rules are here for a purpose that's bigger than us. But I'm just finding it, and I feel that others may be having a hard time feeling it too, because we've been living here and we're not the owners. But the Scarponis are retiring, they're going to be traveling, and we are left here, and we don't want to create future problems for ourselves because we can't quite conceptualize that we're the owners now. So that's just my thoughts on it. And trust me, my husband, our mortgage was due on the first every month with a 15-day grace period, and Peter paid it on the 15th of every month, we never got a late fee, and he always thought he was on time, but technically he was not, he pushed that grace period. But I'm asking for a little patience, and if you want to talk to board members, it just seems like it's a confusing time that's happened in 4 months, and I know my head is spinning a little bit, so I think it's understandable that everybody has the great questions they've had tonight.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing that, Celeste. You are doing, this is a big change. You're about to be the landlords as well as the homeowners. So these things, you know, you're gonna work it out. Every group does, you're an exceptional group. If things need to be fixed down the line, you are the people to do it. You have that power to do it. We're kind of asking you to set things up so you can buy the place next week probably. And then if you need to change things, you have the power to do that. If you get down the line and you don't want any late fees, strike the late fees, you know? Or co-op your rules is what I would say. But you need to take in rent, you know? You need to pay your mortgage, which is why you have to say when the rent is due. Do you have a question? So the lease, in order to change it, each individual household would need to accept an amendment. That's why it's so difficult to change. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you decide to strike late fee penalties, everyone's going to accept that.
Yeah.
I see this here that says that we have to get the board of directors permission to plant a tree, to trim a tree. Who decided that? Is that something that the board put into it? Or are we just going by the old Scafoni rules?
Most groups really do think it's important to say if you're going to plant a tree, there could be like a leach field underneath there. So that's why they include that. But if it's vegetables and fruits and a garden and shrubs, that's different. And it's not, you know, you'll get to the rules. The rules are going to say the board cannot unreasonably withhold permission. If you're trying to plant a nice little tree, they cannot unreasonably, yeah, it's a good point. But then we've seen some co-ops run into a situation where there's like a giant oak tree that was planted over a leach field, and the board's like, oh my gosh, we wish we had some mechanism. But that's a good point. And it comes up. So I'm going to say that you should wrap this meeting up. If you're ready, triple sign this document, you know, sign it, return it. If you want to take it home, read it more, do that. The closing date will be announced. It will go out in the email blast. It will be posted. There's going to be a We Own It celebration that, do you want me to talk about it? Just the date maybe if you want to share.
So we thought we were going to meet on the 26th, and we talked about where we might do that. And I said, oh, so we're going to meet in the school? And Nora said, well, I think maybe you should meet on your own property. So we thought, well, Kurt has probably cleaned out that garage, so we could, yes, that'll be clean. I know that will be clean. So we could meet in there, and we could spread to the outside, but it would be nice to do it on site, wouldn't it? The garage is beside the office. Yes, yeah, not the big garage on the other side. That won't belong to us anymore. Right. So we have been asked, and I don't know if we have an answer yet, but we've been told that someone that's can sign a lot of laws in the state of Maine might be joining us if we move the date to October 1st. The date of the gathering. So the October 1st then. So we're told the governor. The governor's going to join us if we do it on October 1st. So we will invite residents, we will invite some of our wonderful supporters from the community. Poppy will be there. There's been a lot of folks, some of the folks from like the woman from CEI that offered to help us. It's going to be a big celebration. Someone has offered, and I can't give away any names, but someone offered to pitch in $500 toward a party. Someone offered to bring champagne. So I think when we get this behind us, when we sign those many documents, and I'm thinking of having a stamp made for my name, we are going to be celebrating. We also already have a banner that came in from Rock, and it says, "We own it." What's the questions? Well, we're looking at October 1st. That's a Tuesday. 5 p.m. Put it on your calendars. Yeah, we'll party till you, well, you might get a wagon, a little red wagon, bring you home. Well, I don't know if I could walk home, but yeah, maybe there's a four-wheeler. Any other questions before we wrap it up?
What member contact information are you looking for?
Oh, somebody that's in an emergency. A family member, someone that's going to answer to you.
Member contact. At last page, page 2.
Coming over, Tom.
Thank you for watching.
So, this is the other. Okay, so member contact. The undersigned has executed. Okay, so that's your signature, so your contact. Yeah, that's your phone number. And or email. Yeah. Yes. Nora's got something else. Oh, and someone has requested, so when we rented this space, this room was empty. I would love it if we could get a couple of folks to help us. We need to put away the tables, and we need to put away the chairs. And I can't do a whole lot. I can offer suggestions. Yes, I can supervise.
So I just have one last thing. This is a lender requirement. So this is restating the vote that you took to purchase. So they want to see a membership resolution on these items. Do you mind if I repeat them? Do people feel okay with this last step? None of what I'm about to tell you is new information. This is all redundant. It's because there are a lot of lawyers involved on a $27 million deal. So they want to resolve everything. Does that sound okay? This is the last thing that we can all go home. I thank you for your patience. So they're saying that resolved, the cooperative is hereby and directed to purchase the property of One Office Place in 6 Kent Street, known as Lady Haven Mobile Home Center, from Linco Incorporated, pursuant to a purchase and sale signed on June 6th. The cooperative is authorized to borrow $20,610,000 from Maine State Housing Authority and $3.2 million from Maine Housing Authority shall be a grant. This is all the same numbers that you saw in that packet. So none of this is new information. The cooperative is authorized to meet the conditions of the Maine State loan and grant. So that's, again, meeting the requirements of the loan closing. The cooperative is authorized to borrow $3.05 million from the Genesis Fund. Again, you saw that in the August 24th packet. The cooperative is authorized to accept a $300,000 grant from the Genesis Loan Fund. Same you saw. Does that sound okay, or are people telling me to stop talking? Okay. The cooperative is authorized to accept a $800,000 grant from the town of Brunswick. We talked about that as well. The cooperative is authorized to secure the loans by mortgaging and pledging the real and personal property of the cooperative, including but not limited to the property. So that is, the personal property there is the structure, like the contents of One Office Place, the property, the land. The president of the cooperative is authorized and directed to take all such actions, including the execution and delivery of all documents, amendments, assignments. Basically, it's authorizing Janet, acting as board president of the Blueberry Fields Cooperative, to sign the loan documents to finalize the transaction. Is any of that new information for anyone? People look ready to get out of this room. I know it's really hot in here, so we need a motion and we need it voted on.
Do we want to collect anyone who wants to hand these off?
We need to, this is on the table, so we need to do the motion first. If someone wants to make a motion.
Someone want to make a motion to accept the resolution?
So it is the Blueberry Fields Cooperative Resolutions, and I will give you a copy of it. A board member can as well, your members. Yeah.
So a second? Ernie, is seconding? All in favor?
So the motion was to accept those resolutions that I just read. So you are in favor. This is redundant to the vote you took on August 24th. Does everyone understand what's happening? If it feels redundant, it is redundant. You've already made this, but it's a $1 million transaction, so they want a resolution. Thank you. This is the last, voting exercise we're doing.
One per household?
No, you're voting on the resolutions I just read.
Tom's wife wants to vote this time.
So you're good. Keep your hand up.
She got you that time, Tom.
It's a 30-year mortgage. Everything is 30-year. I'm not going to say that.
I'll be dead.
So all of this information is redundant with what you got in your packet too. But yep, let's do no. So you can put your hands down if you want to do a no vote on those resolutions. And no vote. I think you voted
Is there a
already.
no vote? Any no votes?
Yep.
No no's?
Any abstention? Okay.
It's unanimous. Voting in the resolution. So if anybody has their leases signed and ready, please bring them up to the table here and we will hand them off to our new property manager when he's hired.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?